Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review, Southampton 2, Everton 0 at St Mary's last Saturday. Another defeat for Everton away from home, another absolutely dreadful performance. I've been thinking over the last 24 hours or so, was that worse than the game against Newcastle last week? I don't know. There is a strong suggestion that it was an even worse performance than the one against Newcastle. We didn't have a single shot on target, didn't have a single successful cross into the box, no big chances created either. And when you look at the game against Leeds at Goodison Park the week prior, and you think we had 20 odd, I think 21 shots at goal, 10 of them being on target, countless amounts of big chances created, countless amounts of successful crosses coming into the box, and you compare that directly with a game literally just a week later with the same 11 players playing in said game. Obviously, you know, Allan went off at half time due to that yellow card, and you look at the contrast of in performance and how badly this team can play in comparison to how well they can play at Goodison Park, and it really is frightening. It's absolutely terrifying how bad we are away from home. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't care whether there's not 40,000 Evertonians at St Mary's getting behind the players. These are professional footballers earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, some of them even earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a week. They should be able to turn up and play with nobody in the stadium and perform to a decent level, and they should be able to turn up and play in front of 100,000 fans and perform to a decent level. I understand that there's home advantages. I understand that when you've got a home crowd behind you, the home team, you know, tends to play much better, and that can maybe have a little effect on the away team. I understand all of that, but when you look at the two contrasting performances of Leeds and Southampton, nobody can sit here and tell me that that's normal. Nobody can sit here and tell me that, yeah, that's just football because we were away from home. We literally went from playing lovely attacking football, getting forward, creating chances every, bloody 2 minutes. As I said, 10 on target, 21 at goal, sitting here last Monday talking about how good it is for an Everton team to get in the right areas and shoot, to literally a side that couldn't shoot, couldn't find a successful cross, couldn't find a successful chance to create, completely fell to bits again. It's really worrying, and if anything, it pretty much solidifies my thought and my point is that I don't think we'll pick up another point away from home this season. I really don't. And that's worrying, considering some of the games we've got coming up at Goodison Park. We're so heavily reliant on our form at home to keep us in the Premier League, and Frank Lampard is so heavily reliant on these players turning up at Goodison Park and actually putting in a half-decent performance in order to get us points on the board, in order to see us survive and, ultimately be a Premier League side next season. That, you look at some of our home games that we've got coming up. Manchester City on Saturday, we've still got to play Chelsea, we've still got to play Manchester United, we've still got to play, a couple of really good sides, and a couple of sides in there, like Wolves, who will be fighting for a place in Europe, and then you actually look at those fixtures and the importance of those games and how important those games are that we pick up points in. And you start to realise exactly the situation that we're in at the moment. We've got some winnable away games. We really have got some winnable away games coming up. But Saturday was a winnable away game. Southampton are a decent side. They've got some good players. They're in good form. And they're a good team at home. I'll give them the due. They were fantastic. On Saturday, it could have been 4-5, 6-0 on another day if it wasn't for Jordan Pickford. And Jordan Pickford putting in a man-of-the-match performance. But my point is, they're not fighting for the Champions League, are they? They're a decent mid-table Premier League side who have got a little bit of quality in there, in the exact same sense as to what Crystal Palace are, in the exact same sense as to what Newcastle. Well, not even Newcastle. Newcastle are a worse side, and look at how we've performed in our last two away games. So nobody can sit here and confidently tell me, yeah, but we've got some winnable away games coming up, Cam, so we'll be all right. I don't think we'd beat the nearest Sunday League team to my house away from home, because this team are that bad away from home. They crumble that much under pressure. They simply can't perform unless it's in front of 40,000 Evertonians at Goodison Park. They simply can't do it. These are professional footballers who cannot perform unless it's A, at Goodison Park, and B, a bouncing Goodison Park with everybody behind them. We've had one decent season in terms of away form in my life. 23 years old I am. 23 years old. We've had one decent season in regards to away form in my life, and it was last season under Carlo Ancelotti, and there was nobody in stadiums. There wasn't a single fan for the majority of that stadium in those stadiums. So we could play with nobody in the stadium and do relatively well away from home. But we can't do it with fans there. It's really, really, really worrying. And then again, Saturday was a massive, massive smash in the face of reality. Any sort of high positive feeling we had after the Leeds result about going on and building some momentum and building some confidence and actually, having a decent run of form was just completely crumbled on Saturday, wasn't it? And I'm getting a bit sick of it now, to be honest with you. When are we going to have a good run of form? When are we going to have 2 or 3, 4 games where we just consecutively turn up and put in good performances? Not even win 3 or 4 or 5 on the bounce. I'm not even talking about winning 3 or 4 or 5 on the bounce. I'm talking about turning up in 3 or 4 or 5 games on the bounce and actually putting in performances, actually turning up and giving a bit of showing a bit of effort, giving it 110%, not just once, not just on a one-off occasion at Goodison when the fans are behind you against the side that, are very beatable, but doing it away from home against a decent side that, you're going to struggle against. And if you don't win the game, you don't win, but at least we can all sit here and go, do you know what? The players give everything there. They battled, they worked hard. We had 15 shots and we were just unlucky to not score. When are we going to have 2 or 3 consecutive performances where we can look at it and go, do you know what? We've improved there. There's a bit of consistency. We are literally Marmite at the moment. Not Marmite, you either love them or hate them. At the moment, I hate Everton, but we are like, we're one end of this. We're like a seesaw, aren't we? We're either up there doing really, really well, or we're down there in the absolute shit. We either perform fantastically and you're sitting here thinking, oh my God, was that even Everton? Or you're sitting there thinking, that was one of the worst performances we've seen all season. And again, Saturday, and it's not a cliche, and some people might say, oh, you say this every week, Cam. It's genuinely not a cliche. That on Saturday was one of the worst performances I've watched all season from Everton Football Club. As I said, arguably worse than the Newcastle game because it was so one-sided. Other than the first 10 or 15 minutes where we looked good and we started well and we actually started on the front foot and we looked like we had taken some confidence from Leeds. Other than that, once Allan picked up that yellow card, it was one of the most one-sided games of football you will watch all season. Southampton had nothing to deal with, no problem in terms of defending our forward line. Our forward line were absolutely non-existent for 90% of the game. As I said, if it wasn't for Jordan Pickford, they could have scored 4-5 on the day, and it would have been their easiest result all season, which is mad considering the week before at Leeds, we put in, one of the most one-sided games of football all season, but we were on the other end of it. So there's absolutely no consistency with this team. There's absolutely no cohesion. There seems to be no plan. I don't understand it, and it's not Frank Lampard's fault. It really, really isn't Frank Lampard's fault. I know Queensbury says team selection was wrong against Southampton. Could he have played maybe 3 in midfield? Yes, maybe he could have, and I know we've all been screaming out for 3 in midfield, as have I, for, the last however long. But I understand Frank Lampard's point of view is from looking at it thinking, well, Donny van der Beek and Allan were both literally absolutely outstanding against Leeds. They both put in 10 out of 10 performances against Leeds, so there was no real reason to change that. Now, I really do think Allan's yellow card in the opening 15 minutes ruined that game. We'll talk about the penalty decision in a moment as well, because that's another decision that just proves that the referees in this league are an absolute embarrassment to football. They're an absolute embarrassment to football. But that Allan yellow card, I think, was actually more significant than the penalty not being given. Because the penalty not being given, yes, if we have got it and scored it, it would be a completely different game. I understand that. But if Allan wouldn't have got that yellow card, he wouldn't have had to have been as cautious as he was. He'd have been able to throw the odd challenges in. And in Allan, with Allan's game, for me, the way I look at Allan is that he likes to put his foot in he likes to put his his body in the line, on the line. He likes to put his feet in the dangerous areas. He likes to throw himself in the right into challenges and stuff like that. And sometimes he'll commit fouls, and that will get him a yellow card, or he'll get away with it. And sometimes, by the way, Mr. Dominic, I completely agree with that. Rafa Benitez would have taken us down quicker than Frank Lampard will, put it that way. And Allan, anyway, I digress. Allan, likes to get involved. He likes to throw his foot in. He likes to put himself about. He likes to get involved with opposition midfielders and defenders. Now, when you're on a yellow card 15 minutes into a game, you can't do that. Because if I make one bad decision or bad challenge here, the likelihood is the referee's going to send me off. So he couldn't take that risk. So therefore, he wasn't going in to challenges. He wasn't going in as much as he'd usually go in. And again, another negative to that is most of the time when he does go in for those challenges, or when he does get himself, in the mix, he comes away with the ball, or we come away with the ball, or he frustrates opposition players, and opposition players sort of don't know what to do, and it ends up working in our favour. So when you take that all away, you lose what Allan is about, really, and a big part of his game was gone from the 15th, 16th minute when he picked up that yellow card. Now, is it a yellow card challenge? Yes. Do we think the referee's an idiot for giving him a yellow card? Yes, because I think if he played in any of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league, he wouldn't have got a yellow card because of how early in the game it was. I watch midfielders at Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City commit them fouls 4 or 5 times in a game and not get yellow carded. Soon as one Everton player does it early on, the card's straight out. But again, as I said, I digress. That referee was an absolute disgrace. He shouldn't referee in the Premier League ever again. But it just completely sort of knocked the way Allan plays and the style in which Allan plays in it, and that completely knocked our form then. That completely knocked the way in which we wanted to move the ball about, the way in which we wanted to attack, the way in which we wanted to move it around the midfield. Donny van de Beek's game was nullified because Allan wasn't doing his usual thing. So I understand why Lampard went with the 2 in midfield, because it works so well against Leeds. I get it. I get people saying it absolutely has to be a 3. I understand that because we've known that for a while, and I think when Abdoulaye Doucouré returns to fitness, which will hopefully be over the next couple of weeks or so, I think it will revert back to a 3. I think it will. I think you will see Donny van de Beek, Abdoulaye Doucouré and Allan as that 3 in midfield, which will be fantastic. But at the moment, I look at Saturday and think I even, and it is in hindsight, and I get it's in hindsight, and I get some people won't agree, but I would have arguably rather have had Allan stay on a yellow card than Gomes be brought on, to be honest with you. I don't think Andre Gomes is a very good... I rephrase, it's not that he's not a very good footballer, I don't think he's a very effective midfielder, whether it be in a 2, whether it be in a 3, or whether it be in a 43, or whether it be in a 1. I just don't think in the Premier League he's a very effective midfielder. I think he's a good footballer, I think he's good with the ball at his feet, I think he knows where to put his body, but the reality of the situation is he can't defend to save his life. He showed that on Saturday. He can't attack. He scored 2 goals in his 3-4 years that he's been here and got 1 or 2 assists in that time as well. He's not quick. He's not agile. He hasn't really got a good turn of pace. So whilst, yes, if nobody is getting on his back and putting pressure on him, he's good with the ball. He can move it. He can turn with it. He can play a couple of passes. He can use his body. And coming off the bench when you're winning, he's a good option to bring on because he can sort of... Again, he consoles the game when, when you're coming under a sort of a little bit of pressure. But when you're trying to win a game of football, when you're trying to control a midfield from the off, all it takes for an opposition player to look at Andre Gomes and go, if I put even the slightest bit of pressure on this fella, he hasn't got the pace to keep up with me, or he hasn't got the agility to be able to match me. So I'm simply just gonna beat him for it. And as I said, I want to look at Andre Gomes, and I think he's a luxury player. I think if he was somebody like Manchester City, and I'm not saying Andre Gomes is good enough to play for Manchester City or Liverpool or whatever before you say, but Liverpool and Manchester City and teams like that, and the best teams in the world, have got those players in them where you look at them and you go, you're not actually very good, but you get a lot of game time, and that's because they're a luxury player. They're good on the ball, they're nice with it, but they're not particularly great at defending, they're not particularly great at attacking, but there's other players around them that are good at those things, so they get away with it. They get away with having a player in there like Andre Gomes because everybody else around them makes up for the things that he doesn't bring, and he brings that little bit of flair and that little bit of technical side to his game. We can't afford that. We simply can't afford that at Everton Football Club. We can't afford luxury players at this side. We can't afford players that don't have an output. It's as simple as that. That is the simplest way I can put it. We should not have any one player in that Everton team at this current time in a relegation battle with 14 games to go or 15 games to go, whatever it is, in the dreadful form that we're in. We cannot afford to have any one player in that team that does not have an output. Be it defensively, be it in attacking sense. Now, I know we're hamstrung with injuries a little bit, so we've got a couple of defenders in there that haven't got much of an output, but there's not really much we can do about it because we've got injuries in the squad. And I get that the Andre Gomes situation, not much we can do about it because we've got injuries in the squad. But we simply can't afford to have players in this team that don't have an output, and Andre Gomes doesn't have an output. He doesn't. It's as simple as that. And yeah, but anyway, as I said, for me, that game changed when Allan picked up that yellow card and ultimately, effectively called it a day, didn't he? At that point, he made another silly challenge. He made another silly challenge on the edge of the box a couple of minutes later, and look, he probably should have got a yellow card for the latter challenge. To be fair, had he have got booked for the latter challenge, I wouldn't have actually been as peed off with it, really. But it was silly. It was silly by Allan because, again, as I said, he completely nullified his game, which nullified everybody's game then, and it threw us off the scent. It threw us off our tactics because the first 10-15 minutes, we were playing really, really well. We were controlling the ball. We were moving it forward. We had a couple of chances early on. We had one where Anthony Gordon drove into the box and got knocked over. Probably a little bit light. I've seen them given, but probably a little bit light. And he gets up, and then we're going again, and we're moving it well. And Southampton haven't really got control of the ball. They haven't really got control of, the pace of the game and stuff like that. Donny van der Beek's getting on it and moving it about. The attackers are moving around, as I said. Anthony Gordon's trying to pick it up and move into good areas. So we actually started the game really, really well. And just before I think Allan got his yellow card, one of probably the biggest, talking points and things happened in the game, which was the penalty appeal. Cross gets cut into the box. I think it's Oriel Romeo has his hand up here. It smacks his hand. Referee doesn't give it. Goes to VAR. VAR decides to not give it. And Southampton get away with an absolute shocker of a decision. And how long are we going to allow these referees in this league to get away with making such bad decisions? Now, I know people will go, well, VAR. VAR is a computer. VAR is like me sitting here having a shit live stream and then everybody watching me going, that's the Mac's fault, that. What's the Mac doing that for? Get rid of the Mac. It's not the Mac's fault. The Mac is just holding the stream together. I'm the one who's making the decisions on what I say or what I do or how I talk or, what the points I make and how I articulate them. Nothing to do with the computer. The computer's just making it all happen. That's all VAR is. VAR is just the computer. It's the idiots behind it that are watching the replays that are making the decisions. So when I see people say, oh, get rid of VAR, shit, get rid of VAR, getting rid of VAR will do nothing because it will still be the same referees who are controlling VAR that have jobs, that referee footballing games, that are allowed to make those decisions week in, week out. And I've seen the replay again, and I get that it comes off his knee a little bit or, there might be a slight deflection, but the reality of the situation is his arm's out here and it comes off his arm. It's a handball. It stops the cross coming into the box. End of story. I don't give a shit whether it bounced off his knee. I don't give it a shit whether it was early in the game. I don't care what the circumstances were. It bounces off his arm and stops a cross coming into the box. A cross which could have ended in a chance. Be it a goal, be it a shot on target, be it a header that was saved that went out for a corner which ultimately led to a goal. Whatever it may have been, it stopped an Everton opportunity through a ball striking a player's arm, which is handball. Handball all day long. It's not like one of them where it comes off the knee and it grazes the elbow or his arms are here and it comes off his body and it's his arm, because then you'd go, well, his arms are involved. His arm's out here and it hits him in the arm. It's a handball all day long. And the referee doesn't give it. And the other referee sitting behind the screen, because I refuse to call it VAR anymore because I'm sick of people blaming VAR and these idiots behind it. Whoever was on VAR, in fact, I'm going to Google it. VAR Southampton versus Everton. Who was on VAR? I've got a feeling it might have been Martin Atkinson, to be honest with you. Oh no, is this it? This is it, yeah. Who was the VAR? Go away. I don't want to know what the score was. VAR was Andre Mariner. So it's not VAR that didn't give it. It's Andre Mariner that didn't give it. Let's have it completely right. It's frozen now. Is it frozen, Eugene? I don't think it is frozen. It was Andre Mariner that didn't give it, not VAR. And Southampton get away with one. And ultimately, look, I'm not going to sit here and talk too long on it because at the end of the day, we had another, whatever it was, 60, 70 minutes to go and get control of that game. And, the VAR, the penalty decision had nothing to do with Allan or his yellow card. And, I'm not going to sit here and say, we only lost that game because of that one decision, because that's not true. We lost that game because the players, once again, shit themselves, and these players need to take responsibility, because it's their fault that one week they can turn up and play brilliantly, and the next week they turn up and play like they've never fucking met each other. That is the fault of the player. The manager's been here for 20 minutes and has already gotten the best performances out of these players at Goodison Park, and yes, he might have gotten the worst away from home, but that is down to the players. I'm sick of blaming managers. I'm sick of sitting here and saying, it must be the manager's fault. Must be the manager's fault. Must be the manager's fault. Nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. These players need to take responsibility. They absolutely need to take responsibility. And maybe, and you know what? Maybe I'm at fault a little bit for getting so happy when we beat Leeds, or for getting so overjoyed and sitting here and saying, oh, this is brilliant, this player, that player is excellent, this, that, and the other. Maybe next time I just need to sit here and say, good performance, but let's see what they do next week. Because ultimately, that's always the case, isn't it? But that's even more reason, I think, for me to get happy, because I know this ain't going to last. I know we ain't going to put this performance in next week. So whilst we've put it in now, I'm not talking about Southampton, by the way, I'm talking about Leeds, I'm going to be as happy as I fucking possibly can, because I know next week I'll be sitting here absolutely distraught. And that's exactly what it was on Saturday. I knew after the Leeds game, we're probably going to get bounced against Southampton because it's away from home and we're shite away from home. And that's exactly what happened. So I was enjoying it as much as possible. But again, as I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that the VAR decision and the penalty decision was the reason as to why we didn't win that game of football, because that would be a lie. It wasn't. It was a telling factor, and I think had the penalty have been given and had we have scored the penalty, it would have been a different game. Of course it would have, and maybe we'd be sitting here talking about a different scoreline, and this all falls into the the cauldron of the referees in this country simply not being good enough to do the job, and not even being sort of, not even having that question put to them, or not even being investigated for not being good enough at their job. Again, footballers are one of the only professions that can get away with being so bad at the job and still get away with it. I think referees, football referees are one of them as well. I've never known a group of people to be so dreadful at their job and get away with it without even any form of criticism. I've been a big believer and big advocate for having referees sit in front of an interview camera after the game and explain their decisions. I don't see why not. Players have to do it, managers have to do it. We're all human beings. If a referee makes a bad decision, why should they be protected from any criticism? Why shouldn't they sit in front of a camera and explain, why did you make that bad decision? If it was a mistake, then they can come out and say, it was a mistake, I got it wrong, and be honest, and people would have a lot more respect for them if they did do it. But if they genuinely believe some of these decisions they make are the right decisions, then come out and explain it. Why there's this big, you can't talk to referees, or you can't interview referees, or you can't ask them questions, it sends a really, really weird message out for me, a weird message of, well, why? If that referee's confident he's made the right decision, then if I'd made the decision and I was confident it was the right decision and everybody was telling me it was wrong, I'd have no problem sitting in front of a camera saying, listen, you can think it's wrong, but ultimately this is the decision I made. That's why I made it. I think it's right. So if they think it's right, then why all of a sudden can you not? Anyway, again, different topic, different conversation. But yeah, the penalty doesn't get given. The game plays on, and ultimately, it would have created a different atmosphere. It would have certainly changed the game. Whether it would have changed the ultimate outcome, I don't know, because Southampton may have just given themselves a kick in the, a kick up the arse a little bit, and bounced further forward. And again, might have been like Newcastle. Let's not forget we scored first against Newcastle, and it didn't make any difference. So, but after that moment, as I said, the game goes on, and we're looking good. We're looking bright. We're still trying to create chances. We're still trying to move the ball forward. And then Allan picks up his yellow card. Now, it is a silly challenge. It is a silly challenge, and it is a yellow card challenge. It is. And again, I don't want to get into the Martin Keown territory. And the reason I say Martin Keown territory is because I was listening to TalkSport a couple of weeks ago, and Martin Keown was on there talking about, I think it was the Martinelli situation where he got 2 yellow cards in the space of one passage of play. And I think one of his points he made was, well, yeah, it was a yellow card, but he shouldn't have been given. It was a yellow card challenge, but he shouldn't have been given a yellow card. The referee should have used his common sense. And I remember thinking, how can it be a yellow card challenge, but you're saying it's not, shouldn't have been given a yellow card? So I don't want to get into that sort of territory, because it probably was a yellow card challenge. However, I do think that, referees have been known to give the benefit of the doubt to players in the past. They've been known early on in games to let players get away with, a warning, or saying, you got away with one there. But to be fair, as somebody mentioned in the comments before, a couple of minutes later, Allan made another another challenge on the edge of the box, which led to James Ward-Prowse hitting a free kick onto the bar. Led to James Ward-Prowse hitting a free kick, which was brilliantly saved by Jordan Pickford, which would have been a yellow card either way. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and dwell on it too much, but Allan gets his yellow card, and as I said, all of a sudden, that changes the complete complexity of the game. Because not only can Allan not play his usual game then, but Donny van der Beek can't do what he usually does, or he certainly did do against Leeds, because Allan's game is hindered, so Donny van der Beek's got to make up for that. The attack have got to make up for Allan not being there, throwing himself into challenges left, right and centre. The defence have got to be a lot more aware of what's going on, because they haven't got that extra line of defence, or they certainly haven't got, as strong of an extra line of defence as they would have if Allan hadn't been on a yellow card. From that point on, we simply fell to bits, but I refuse to sit here and go, yeah, well, Allan got his yellow card, and we couldn't play in the same way, so we lost the game, and that's all right. I refuse to, because one player in a team of 11 picking up a yellow card, we're not talking about him getting sent off. If he'd have been sent off, it'd be a different scenario, because we'd be sitting here with 10 men in the first half against a team away from home. It would have been massively difficult. We're talking about a player getting a yellow card. Allan gets a yellow card in near enough every game, be it in the first 10 minutes or the last 10 minutes or whatever. So I refuse to sit here and go, it's alright, Allan got a yellow card, that's the reason we lost the game, that's the reason we performed so poorly, I'll excuse that. Because ultimately, that's nonsense. I do think that's the reason the game changed. I do think that's the reason the performance changed, and I do think that's the reason as to why we went from being looking bright in the first 10 minutes to being absolutely dreadful for the rest of the game. But that shouldn't be an excuse. That simply shouldn't be an excuse. We shouldn't be sitting here saying, oh, well, that's all right, because everybody couldn't play the same then, so everybody just down tools instead. The players around Allan should have picked themselves up, given that extra 10%, worked that extra bit harder, and then in the dressing room at the end of the game or at half time, say to him, fucking hell, lads, fucking hell, Allan, mate, I've had to work, 4 times as hard there because you've picked up a stupid yellow card. Don't do that again. Don't just go, oh, well, Allan can't play his usual game, so, well, it is what it is, we'll just accept fate. That's nonsense. As I said before, when are these players going to start taking responsibility? At what point do we sit here and go, these players just don't do enough, don't give enough, don't show enough, aren't interested in winning enough? Again, it's a serious worry, and it's a serious problem. But it changed the complexity in the game, and I've actually got some notes written down here. Only some bullet points to remind me of the game, and the first one was started well, second one was penalty appeal, third one was Allan yellow card, and the next one is all downhill. All downhill from there, because that's exactly what it was. As soon as Allan got that yellow card, it was all downhill from there. Now, we held on for the remainder of the first half, and we kept ourselves in the game, and we got in at half-time at 0-0, and you're thinking, right, okay, not been the greatest first half. We started relatively well, but we've struggled, but we're very much still in the game. It's 0-0. If Frank Lampard can go out, solidify the game a little bit, frustrate Southampton for maybe the opening 10-15 minutes of the second half, and then come out with a point at this point, then, you'd take it. As I said, we come for the second half. Andre Gomes replaces Allan, because obviously Allan had made a couple of challenges at this point that I think Frank Lampard wasn't too pleased with. And as I said, that's Allan's game. That is Allan's game. Allan, he makes those challenges. He puts his feet in the way. He gets involved, in those situations. And in doing that, he ultimately will pick up yellow cards. He ultimately will foul people. And when you're on a yellow card and you've done that 2 or 3 times, you're not going to get away with it. And then Andre Gomes comes on. And as I said before, look, I'm not going to sit here and go at Andre Gomes, because he wasn't the only bad player on Saturday. I thought Alex Iwobi done nothing of note. I thought Dominic Calvert-Lewin was poor. I thought Anthony Gordon in the second half was poor. In the first half, he was exciting, he was exhilarating, he was getting involved, he was trying to create chances, and I don't particularly blame Anthony Gordon for his performance dropping in the second half in the same way as I don't particularly blame Dominic Calvert-Lewin for his performance dropping in the second half, because he had absolutely no service. We've just read before, no successful crosses into the box. We know Dominic Calvert-Lewin feeds off crosses, we know he feeds off balls into the box, so when you've not got that service, you're not going to get a 10 out of 10 performance from Dom. And as I said, I refuse to sit here and have a go at Anthony Gordon, not only because his recent performances have been fantastic, but I think in the first half, other than Jordan Pickford, he was probably the only Everton player that could go in thinking, do you know what, I've given absolutely everything there for the entirety of that half. Second half, he was quiet. I understand that, but, you know, again, he's been absolutely fantastic for however many weeks on the bounce, so I refuse to sit here and have a go at Anthony Gordon. But Gomes comes on and you just sort of know instantly that, you know, and I agree with what everybody's saying at a 3 in midfield. Kevin says Lampard needs to play 3 in midfield, playing 2 is for trouble. I agree. And I think a 2 works in a double pivot with Allan and Donny van der Beek when Allan's not getting silly yellow cards early on in games. But a midfield 2 with Donny van der Beek and Andre Gomes is just a disaster. An absolute disaster. And it was going to be a disaster because Donny van der Beek is he's the technical player. He'll put himself about. He'll put the challenges in. He'll get involved, but he's not necessarily the bulldog. He's there to sort of support Allan in doing that, and then bring the technical side to the midfield as well. Andre Gomes ain't gonna get involved with the dog work. He ain't gonna get involved with the bulldozer work or the Rottweiler work, whatever you want to call it. He isn't. He tried it once and he put a knee in someone's back, and it was like something out of WWE in the 90s. It was literally like Stone Cold finishing move or some shit. Once he tried to get himself a little bit involved with the physical side of the game, and he nearly put someone's back out. And when you watch the replay, very lucky to not get a caution for it. Maybe even I've seen people get sent off for it because he's nowhere near the ball and he just puts a knee in someone's back. So Andre Gomes isn't going to bring that side. Fidel, you can do one, mate. You're an absolute idiot. In fact, I'm going to show it and then I'm going to block you from the channel myself. I can't block you now because someone else blocked Fidel or Fidel, whatever his name is, because I've just showed the comments so people could see how much of an idiot he is. There you go. I can do it now. Absolute divvy, mate. Absolute divvy. But yeah, as I said, Gomes comes on and Gomes and Gomes and Donny van der Beek, we're never going to be able to have that partnership that Allan and Donny van der Beek had, because as we've established, Gomes is a luxury player, and Donny van der Beek to a certain extent is a luxury player as well. He's a little bit more, he's more effective in terms of the dog work and the working hard, but in technical terms, he's a little bit of a luxury player. And then as soon as Gomes come on, and then again, I'm not saying it was directly to for Gomes, because for the rest of the first half that Allan was on the pitch, he was dreadful as well. Not only the yellow card, but his passing was poor, his movement was poor. He was just poor for the rest of the time that he was on the pitch in that first half. So it's not entirely on Andre Gomes, but it just didn't really help, did it? And then Southampton just built in confidence. They started to move the ball forward a lot more freely. They started to create chances. They started to get at us, attack us. And it was one of them where it only seemed like a matter of time. Frank Lampard was in need of making some changes. Obviously, he'd already made one at half time, bringing Gomes on for Allan. And it was as I said, it was one of them where you're sort of looking at it thinking, this isn't a if Southampton will score, it's a when Southampton are going to score in the reality of the situation. And that's exactly what it was. Not long after, Andre Gomes is caught with the ball at his feet in possession. To be fair to Andre Gomes, it was an absolutely dreadful ball in by Michael Keane. It was an absolute hospital ball by Michael Keane. Gomes is caught with the ball at his feet because we know he's not going to get it out and move it. We know he's not going to get it out quickly. So Michael Keane gives it to him under pressure. Gomes gets caught with it. The ball moves forward. Southampton move it over. John Joe Kenny gets completely sucked towards it. I was a big advocate of John Joe Kenny last week and spoke openly about his performance against Leeds and said about how fantastic it was. But the reality of the situation was his lack of positional awareness, especially at being a left back, was on show on Saturday against Southampton, and he completely runs out towards the ball, doesn't he? And Adam Armstrong makes it 1-0, and as soon as Adam Armstrong makes it 1-0, you sort of just know, right, that's it. It's game over, because, as I said, for the rest of the game, and this has become a big issue with Everton as well, we go 1-0 down, and there's half an hour to go, 40 minutes to go, 25 minutes to go, whatever it is, sufficient enough time to have a go. Sufficient enough time to, pick themselves up and have a go. And if we have a go and Southampton hit us on the break and we go 2-0 down, then you hold your hands up and go, do you know what, at least they've had a go. At least they've tried to get an equaliser. At least they've understood the importance of not losing this game. If you're going to lose 1-0, you may as well lose 2-0, in my opinion. And we lost 2-0 anyway. If you're going to lose 2-0, you may as well lose 3-0 and have a go. Because if we go down this year, it ain't going to be via goal difference, let's be honest. So, this is another thing that really pisses me off with Everton, is there's no fight, there's no desire. It's just spineless, gutless, shithouse performances, especially when we go 1-0 down. There's no, right, we've gone 1-0 down there, but you know what? Let's pick ourselves up and let's go and get an equaliser because we need. There's no reaction, as Ananda says, there's no reaction, and there's never a reaction. There's never a reaction when we go 1-0 down. It's never, right, come on, let's have a go at, let's have a go at these. Let's get back into this. Let's actually, get a couple of shots on goal. Let's actually get a couple of shots in. There's none of that. That calculator says, mate, it's every game, not just us. What's every game? Not just us. I don't get what you're referring to. There's no reaction. There's no reaction. There's no picking themselves up. There's no get the head back in the game. It's just like 1-0 down. That's it. Defeated. May as well get off at that point because we're not getting back into it. And that's exactly what happened. We go 1-0 down. Again, we fold. Southampton have another however many shots at goal. Jordan Pickford makes a couple of really, really big saves that keep us in the game. They hit the bar, I think, at one point. At this point, they're just absolutely peppering us. As I said, it was one of the most one-sided games of football that you'll watch all season. And then Shane Long comes on. Ball comes into the box within the first 10 seconds of Shane Long coming on. He gets a header on it, and it's 2-0, and it's well and truly game over. Then a couple of minutes later, final whistle goes, and that's it. And I wish I could sit here and talk a lot more about the second half, but the reality was, as soon as we went 1-0 down, that was it. The manager made a couple of changes. He made a couple of substitutions. He brought on Anzot Townsend. He brought on Dele. They didn't really do much, did they? We still didn't create any clear chances. We still didn't move the ball well. The forward line for the last half an hour were absolutely non-existent. And as I said, I don't particularly sit here and blame them individually in terms of Richarlison, Gordon, Calvert-Lewin, Dele, but they were completely non-existent. And that's because the midfield had absolutely no control of the ball, no control of the game. And Southampton were the team getting forward, creating. Southampton were the team thinking, let's get another, let's get a third, let's get a fourth, let's try and get a fifth. Everton with a team 1-0 down, 2-0 down, thinking, yeah, bollocks this is done. Defeatist mentality, shithouse, gutless, spineless mentality. And how can these players have that mentality in the situation that we're in? I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. And if anything has become apparent over the last couple of weeks or so since Frank Lampard has come into the Everton job, it's that if we are to stay in the Premier League this season, it will be on home performances. Let's be honest. It won't be on away performances. And I heard a couple of murmurs over the last couple of days. I saw about the City game. Oh, it's City coming up and they're in a title race with Liverpool. I've had a few Liverpool fans come up to me and said, just want to beat City this weekend then, or do you want to lose? Because it's, I just want to make it absolutely abundantly clear. Fuck the title race. And I apologise for swearing. By the way, I'm going to swear. So if anybody's watching with young children or young kids present, then you might want to just sort of mute or skip the next 20 seconds. Fuck the title race. Fuck Liverpool. Fuck Manchester City. Fuck whatever happens in that situation. If you were to say to me, Cam, Everton beat Manchester City on Saturday, and then go on a run of 4 or 5 games winning and you stay in the Premier League guaranteed, but that win against Manchester City means Liverpool win the league, I'd snatch your hand off for it, because it's not about Liverpool. I don't care about Liverpool. I'm not a Liverpool fan. I don't give a shit. The reality is, I didn't want to lose to Manchester City in 2014 when some Blues did. But the difference between now and 2014 is in 2014 we were in a stable position. We were doing all right in the league. We weren't going to go down. I'm not saying we could have afforded to lose, but losing wasn't the worst thing in the world. Now we can't afford to lose a game of football at Goodison Park. And let's be honest, this conversation shouldn't even be being had because Manchester City are the best team in the country. So we mightn't even have a chance of getting anything out the game anyway because of how good they are and how bad we are. But the reality is, I really, really hope, and there's 85 Evertonians watching, or there's 85 people watching. If you could hit that like button, it would mean a great deal to me. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. I really hope there's not one single person watching this stream now that doesn't want Everton to win on Saturday because of the title race that we're not involved in. I hope Everton go out and beat Manchester City 18-0 on Saturday. We won't, but I hope we do. I really hope we do. Because I don't care about who wins the title. I don't care about who comes second. I don't care about whether Liverpool win it or they don't win it. I couldn't give a shit. I care about Everton being a Premier League team next season. I care about Everton getting as many points on the board. I care about Everton staying in this division. And when you look at away performances like Saturday and like Newcastle, you slowly start to realise we ain't going to win many games away from home. In fact, I don't think we'll win any games away from home between now and the end of the season. In fact, I'd be surprised if we picked up another point away from home between now and the end of the season. So the home games become more and more important, and there ain't many of them. 7-8 left. 7-8 of them left. We're still very much in a relegation battle. Watford won at the weekend away from home. Burnley won at the weekend convincingly away from home. Newcastle got a point, unbeaten in 6 games. The teams around us are winning. The teams around us are picking up points. The teams around us are building a little bit of form, got a little bit of confidence, especially Newcastle. And I'll keep saying this because I keep reminding people, 3 teams go down. I've seen people on Twitter going, yeah, but Norwich have lost. If one team went down, I'd be sitting here a lot more confident because I'd be going, well, Norwich will probably go down, so we'll be all right. 3 teams go down. 3 teams. The 3 teams that are in and around us, 2 of them won on the weekend and 1 of them got a point. And the one that got a point are unbeaten in 6 and beat us 2 weeks ago. We lost. We can't afford to not win games of football because of what it might do to other teams. And as I said, City will be a massively difficult game because it's Manchester City and they're the best team in the league. But I hope we beat them convincingly on Saturday. I really, really do. And you know, if we do, I'll be absolutely over the moon. I'll probably be in tears of joy at Goodison because that result could be massive. And the last thing that'll be on my mind is the title race or who might win the title now. I won't give a shit. And I know not a lot of Blues are thinking that, but I've just seen a couple of memes on Twitter and social media. And again, as I said, I've had a couple of people talking to me about it in person. So I just want to get it out the way there now that there shouldn't be any Evertonian that doesn't want anything less than 3 points on Saturday. Period. And I know there's not many, but I'm just saying, just before those conversations creep up, I'm getting it out there because Saturday against Southampton showed that we're not going to do much away from home between now and the end of the season. And it ain't Frank Lampard's fault. It's the players' fault. It's the fact that these players are on ridiculous money and can't motivate themselves to go to an away ground, put up with a little bit of pressure, put up with an away crowd, and put in a decent performance. Southampton are a good side. They're a good team at home, so I don't take much out of this performance because they're a decent side. Got good players, good quality, managed well. But when you look at the likes of Newcastle and teams like that you're looking at and thinking, we should be beating them. You know, that should be a convincing win, and you lose comfortably. It's a worry. It's a massive worry. But it's another defeat. It's another defeat that ultimately puts us in an even worse situation than what we were in, you know, the week before. As I said, every result pretty much went against us at the weekend in terms of the teams around us winning and picking up points and us dropping points. But you know, our next 2 games are Manchester City at home and Tottenham away. And if we lose both of those, which is very possible considering A, the fact that Tottenham have just beaten Manchester City and will be on a high, and B, Manchester City are the best team in the league, then, you know, where does that leave us? Because it's extremely worrying. If you look at the Premier League table now, just before we go, so we're on 22 points. Newcastle have actually got the same amount of points as we have. Leeds have got 23. Brentford have got 24. Palace have got 26. So we're well within range of getting out of this. But if we lose our next 2, and let's say Newcastle take 4 points out of their next 2, they go to 26 points. They'll go above us. Let's say Watford win their next, again, 1. They go to 21 points. So they'll go a point behind us. Burnley win a couple. They go to 23 points. They'll go above us. So we could be sitting here after Tottenham and City on the back of 2 defeats, which is very possible in the relegation zone or a point above the relegation zone, which is I just again, I don't know. Hernandez says, can you realistically comprehend how much life will change if we are relegated? Dark times ahead if we can't sort this out. Exactly. Can see a lot of deadwood out of our club at the end of the season. Cam Defo, 100%, mate, 100%. We need strikers. Our strikers should have been replaced long. We need a lot, mate. We need a lot. Stuart says, we're getting nothing from the next 2 matches in reality, but we need to put in performances that build confidence and not get better. Goal difference may come into it. You know what? I actually agree. I know I said before we're not going to go down on goal difference, but if we're going to lose the next 2, and I don't want to be defeaters because we can beat Manchester City. Manchester City have proven this season that they can be beaten away from home. We can beat Tottenham. Tottenham have proven that they can be beaten. But if we were to lose, then I hope we lose putting in really good performances, so then we can go into the couple after Manchester City, which are, you know, winnable games. I think we've got Newcastle and Watford within the same week, and go, do you know what? Let's go and win them 2 and get 6 points there. And that will, you know, maybe keep us afloat, hopefully keep us afloat. So I actually agree with you there. You're spot on, mate. Kevin says Lampard must have a good idea who he can rely on these shit performances and results. Yeah. The Mighty Blues says, Harold, my point was it's about fight more than who's asked. Scary to think about, says USA. And Kevin says the Psychers, we have provided some quality balls before we can score goals. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, look, we are going to finish it up there then. Only a quick one today, but I have got to go to the gym, and then I'm going out for my tea, so that's why I've had a quick one. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. I'm going to try and get a stream out tomorrow as well. Been some news over the last 24 hours or so. Jean-Philippe Gbamin has gone out on loan to CSKA Moscow, so we can have a little bit of a chat about that. A couple of bits of injury news that we can have a little bit of a chat about as well, so we'll do that tomorrow evening if you are interested in joining us, and then maybe try and get one out on Thursday as well, before obviously the preview to City on Friday. So Thomas says, genuinely, Cam, do you think we will get relegated? Genuinely, at this moment, I do. I'll be honest with you, I do. And I will have to be that decision in my mind will need to be changed. Yeah, we'll wait and see. Anyway, big thank you all for watching. I am still going to stay positive, and I'm going to try and keep as positive as possible. And maybe that me thinking we do is because of, you know, it's been a mad few weeks for me in my personal life, so my general mindset at the moment is a little bit more negative than it usually would be, so maybe that's where that comes from, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Hopefully that will change, and hopefully we do stay up, and like I said, I'm working every day on thinking, no, we'll be alright, but it's performances like Saturday that make you think, do you know what? I'm not so sure, but anyway, there you go. Massive thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, please hit that like button. It only takes a second. Peter says, nice one, Cam. Enjoy your scan. Nice one, mate. Mighty Blues says, nice one, Cam. Peace out, Blues. Cheers. Thomas says, cheers, mate. We'll stay up, says Kevin. I hope so. Cheers. Thanks, Cam, says UFC Toffee. Nice one. Thank you all very much. If you've enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you soon.